I buy notebooks like this. Great. They fall apart. The pages come out. Not good enough, so I made myself a nice one. It's some nice quality Italian leather. Is it Italian leather? I don't know. But yeah, so cut all the paper, make the notebook, make notes. First thing I did was I went ahead and measured the old notebooks. Now, if you don't have an old notebook, you can just copy mine, or you can do whatever size you want. It really doesn't matter. Here you can see it's 174 by 127 millimeters. Next, you're going to want to steal some paper from a child. Now, if you don't have your own child, you can just find another child that has some paper. I don't have a child, so I had to steal mine. Once you've finished acquiring enough paper for the notebook you're going to make, it's time to trim it down to length. Now to do this, I just lined up the bottom left corner of the paper with the bottom left markings on the cutting grid. I then used a ruler and aligned the top and the bottom with the 174 and trimmed it down to length. Once you've got yourself a nice fat stack of paper, it's time to mark out where you're going to put the holes to stitch it. Now, I did this by folding one piece in half and then marking out my spots. So I pretty arbitrarily just picked some distances with about a 1 centimeter gap between them. If I was going to do this again, I would probably leave a much bigger gap. So as you can see here, I did 2.5 in and then 3.5 on this side and just repeated the exact same process on the other side. Then you line up all the papers on top of each other, nice and neat as possible, and use an awl to punch a hole all the way through to the bottom, just marking where you're going to be stitching on each page. Now, after this, you're going to take a few sheets in hand and just pop the awl through each one, making sure that all the holes are nice and neat. Once the pages are poked and folded, it's time to stitch them together. To do this, I just use some waxed cotton thread that's very common in leatherworking. Once the notebook is stitched together, you can then trim the edges to be as neat as you want. I decided that I didn't need this as my pages lined up pretty well. I then stole some skin from a cow. This is a Arno belly pull-up leather. Now it's a really nice leather that aged, and I also liked how this side of the leather was distressed already, and there's some like cuts and abrasions as the leather came from the Once I was happy with the dimensions of the sleeve I made, it was time to start skiving down the areas that will actually fold, so that they just lay a little more flat when the notebook's inside and it doesn't try and bow out. After I'd finished giving the folding areas a bit of a nip and tuck, I then punched the holes that would hold the copper rings that would hold the notebook in place. My camera decided that then would be a good time to die, so there's no footage. And honestly, if you are going to attempt this, I probably wouldn't bother with the copper rings to hold the book in, because it was just a real pain getting them in place and getting the exact, shape that would work properly. After finagling the notebook into the rings, it's time to add the strap on. Now, I used some leather thong that was wrapped around a pack of bamboo mats, actually. So I just marked a hole in the middle of the flap and then used the hole punch to make a hole that was the right size to fit the thong through.
Wow, that's pretty good.